So let's go ahead and we'll recall the case now that we know that everything's on the record. Just to make sure we're in compliance with the rule. So once again, we're on the record in docket 22-02481. That's people of the state of Michigan versus Marshawn Curtis. The Attorney General for the record.
Patricia Sarasa, Your Honor.
Melissa Patrick on behalf of Marshawn Curtis, who was here to my right.
So you are Marshawn Curtis, correct?
Yes, Your
It's
Honor.
my understanding we're going to have a preliminary examination today. Are there any other preliminary matters? There was a motion made. It was denied. That's why we're on the record and we're live. Is there anything else? Any other preliminary matters before we get started then?
Not from the people, Your Honor.
All right, then the people can call their first witness.
We would call Chelsea Gunter. And I don't know if the record's clear, Your Honor, but this would be on the CSC third.
Correct. This would be on the file indicated 22-02481.
Thank you.
All right, ma'am, you're Chelsea Gunther. You can please stand right before the court. I'm going to have you, just for my court reporter's purposes, I'm going to have you state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
Chelsea Marie Gunter. My last name's Gunter.
Gunter. I'm going to have you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
All right, ma'am, I'm going to have you sit in the chair right here, and I'm going to have you project as loud as you can for recording purposes, okay? And counsel will probably ask you your name and to state your name and spell your last name for the record, just for testimony purposes, all right?
Okay.
All right, you may proceed, ma'am.
Thank you. Chelsea, please state your full name for the record.
Chelsea Marie Gunter.
And can you spell it for us? Yes.
CHELSEA MARIEGUNTER.
How old are you, Chelsea? And tell me your date of birth, if you would, please.
1/11/1997.
And Chelsea, I want to ask you if you know somebody by the name of Marshawn Curtis.
Yes.
Do you see that individual in the courtroom this afternoon, Chelsea?
Yeah.
Can you please indicate where by pointing and describing what that person is wearing right now?
A blue shirt with white shirt underneath.
Can you point again so everybody can see? All right, thank you, ma'am. Your Honor, may the record reflect that as the witness answered the question, she's identified the defendant in this matter, Marshawn Curtis.
Any objection to the witness's identification of the defendant?
No objection for
Okay.
preliminary exam
Okay,
purposes.
without objection, the witness is identified. The defendant.
Thank you, Your Honor. Chelsea, tell me how you know the defendant in this case. How did you meet him?
We went to school together in the academy.
And tell me what the Ingham Academy is, Chelsea.
It's a school for troubled kids that are in probation.
And how old were you?
I'm sorry, can you speak up? I can't.
It's a school for troubled kids that are on probation.
So you're not in a normal school system. Well, I shouldn't use the word normal. You're not in the mainstream school system. You're in a different school,
Yes.
which is called the Ingham Academy. And so what grade were you when you were in the Ingham Academy?
I graduated from Ingham Academy, but I started, I was technically supposed to be in 7th grade, but they moved me up to 8th grade to put me in the school.
And how old were you when you started in the 8th grade? So you skipped a grade essentially, or they put you in the?
Yeah.
Okay. How old were you?
11 or 12, maybe 12, I think.
Okay. And how old were you when you met the defendant?
I was 12 or 13. It was my first year in Academy.
And tell me, I want to direct your attention to April 24th of 2012 through May 8th of 2012 now. All right, were you still in the Ingham Academy during that time?
Yes.
And did you have contact with the defendant during that time?
Yes, I don't know.
Okay. And I want to ask you about an incident that would have happened at his brother's house. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah.
First of all, let me ask you this, Chelsea, and I'm sorry, but we have to go very methodically for legal purposes, okay? Do you remember what street the brother's house was on?
Rita,
Okay, and what city is that in, Chelsea?
Lansing, Michigan.
All right, do you know what county that is, ma'am?
Hingham. I think.
Okay. And how did you end up at his brother's house on Rio Street?
I got a ride
And why were you going there on that particular time frame?
to hang out with Marshawn.
Okay, so whose idea was it that you go to his brother's house on Rio Street?
Well, we were texting back and forth, so it was, I think it was mutual.
Okay, did Marshawn, the defendant, ask you to go there?
Yeah, he texted me,
Okay, do you remember why?
to come hang out, and we were drinking.
Okay, tell me what happened. How did you get to the house on Rio Street?
I got a ride from a family friend of ours,
And who was that person?
my brother's friend Trevor,
And did anybody else go with you?
my friend Gina.
Okay, so you and Gina went to the house on Rio Street,
Yes.
and tell me what happened.
We went in, we were hanging out.
When you say the court needs to know, we need to know who you mean.
Me and Gina
Okay,
went inside. Well, he came outside and got us. We went inside.
when you say he,
Marshawn.
okay,
And we were hanging out in his, I guess, room or recording studio
tell me about the inside. Tell me about is it an apartment or a house?
house.
Okay, tell me about it.
When you walk in to the front door, it was the living room. There was a couch right here on this wall. And
You're
then-
indicating the right wall. If you're
yeah, on
facing-
the right wall.
Okay.
Yeah, if you walk in, it's on the right wall. And then we walked through the living room into the first room on the right in the hallway,
What's in that first room to the right?
the recording studio.
When you say that, tell me what you mean by a recording studio. What's in there? What makes you describe it as that?
If they had a microphone in there, and I don't know what the equipment's called, but equipment to record,
Okay,
and there was a place to sit.
okay. So tell me what happened. You went into that room?
Yeah, me, Gina, and Marshawn.
Was it just the three of you, Gina, yourself, and the defendant?
Yes.
All right. Was there anybody else in the house?
No.
Do you know if it's a house that has like two different apartments, or is it a house that, do you know, if you know?
I thought it was a full house.
Okay. Now, tell me what happened. At some point, did Gina stay with you and the defendant the whole time?
No.
All right, tell me about what happened.
Me and Marshawn went to the living room, and he told Gina that she could chill in the recording studio in the room.
All right.
And we went out to the living room and had sex.
Okay. And when you say had sex, can you be clearer with us? We need to know specifically what you mean by that. What do you mean by had sex?
Like, I'm sorry, like, we had sex, we had intercourse.
Okay, intercourse. So what part of his body did he use to have intercourse with you?
His penis
And where did his penis go?
in my vagina.
All right. And how long did that last, Chelsea?
I don't know, maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes longer, maybe.
Do you know if he ejaculated?
Yes.
He did? Can you tell me what you were wearing, if you recall?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember what the defendant was wearing before?
No,
Okay. Did he take his clothes off to have intercourse?
I just pulled my pants down and he pulled his pants down.
Okay. And at the time, you would have been 15.
Yes,
Had you been drinking?
yes,
All right. As a result of that, did you become pregnant?
yes,
And who was the father of that child?
Marshawn.
And what is that, your child's, I'm not gonna ask you to, well, the defendant knows the name, correct?
Yes.
What is your child's name?
Ariana
What is her last name?
Gunter,
And what is her date of birth?
1/15/2013.
And did the defendant acknowledge being the father?
Not at first. At first, he slandered my name and told me it wasn't his.
Eventually, did he acknowledge paternity
We got paternity.
in the court, family
Yeah.
court?
Yeah.
Let me just double check my notes real quick. What grade would you have been in when you had sex with the defendant, if you know?
It would have been 8th grade.
Okay. Thank you, Chelsea. Your Honor, I will pass it away.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Ms. Gunther. You testified that you and Mr. Curtis left the recording room and went to the living room,
Yes.
correct? And you both pulled your pants down.
Correct.
Was that a mutual act of sex?
It was at the time, but I didn't know what was gonna come out of it.
Okay. Did he try to pull your shirt off or anything like that?
I just told me to pull my pants up.
Was he aggressive or violent or anything like that?
We were talking at first. I can't remember what we were talking about. We were talking and it led to. That's how we started.
You said you don't remember what you were talking about.
I
Was
was
it-
so,
Was it sex that you could have been talking about?
yes, probably.
And you said you were in the 8th grade, correct?
Yeah, it was the 7th or 8th grade.
Do you know what grade he was in at that time?
I have no idea. I'm guessing high school. All the grades were together.
Okay. So you were in high school and he was in high school,
No, I was not in high school.
junior high school or middle school or whatever they call it here. Okay. Was there ever a time that you and Mr. Curtis discussed your ages
No,
with each other? Was there ever a time that you told him that you were 15?
no, he didn't care to know. He didn't ask.
And prior to seeing him in this school, did you know who he was?
No,
Do you recall how you met him at school?
in the hallway.
Okay. Do you know if you had any friends in common at that time?
No, I don't know. I was new to the school.
Okay. Have you lied about your age previously?
No, I have not.
Ever?
No.
Your Honor, I object to that. Have you lied about your age previously ever? That's very broad and I don't see the relevance. Age is not a factor in terms of the consent. If her age, he did not have to know her age, in other words, for this charge to be established. She was underage. This is a statutory rape case.
So your legal objection,
Is that it's not relevant.
response?
I withdraw the question. Have you ever been around, well, let me rephrase and withdraw that portion. Was there ever a time that you hung out with Mr. Curtis at your house?
Yes,
And how did that occur? How did he get to your house?
he got a right to my house.
Okay. Was there ever a time when you and someone, an adult, went to pick him up to take him to your house?
Not that I can recall.
You just can't recall it, but it could have happened?
Not that I remember, no.
Okay. But you do recall him coming to your home?
Yes,
Who was there at your home at
My
that
mom.
time? Your mother? Okay. Do you recall stating to a detective previously that you are an aggressive girl?
I'm an aggressive girl. No.
Just a moment.
I guess I'm gonna have to object to that as well. I don't see the relevance,
Response?
given the nature of the charge, Your Honor.
I'm allowed to question the witness about her interactions with the defendant. That's what we're here about.
You are allowed to question, but your questions have to be relevant. So how is her being, so you're allowed to question her credibility. I agree with that.
Mhm.
So if she indicates she doesn't remember, then you can cross-examine her on what she said to the police in the police
Mhm.
report.
This is pertaining to a time when her and the defendant were together around each other. This is-
That wasn't the question, though. The question was, do you recall saying to the police you're aggressive? She can answer that question.
Yes.
Yeah, so the objection's overruled.
Okay.
If she doesn't remember it, then you're left to other questions,
Okay.
unless you want to refresh your memory.
Well, that's what I was intending. to do.
Okay, but I don't know that she's answered the question yet.
She actually stated that she couldn't remember.
Okay, then you may proceed. The objection's overruled.
Okay. Give me just a minute. If I showed you a portion of a police report where you were speaking with the officer, would that refresh your memory?
Sure.
Okay. Permission to approach.
You may.
I'll let the record reflect that I'm handing the witness a page 37 from a police report. And I want you to take a look at this portion here and read it silently to yourself, this paragraph.
Which paragraph, counsel? Okay.
You can read the paragraph to yourself and look up when you're done.
I'm.
No, you can hand it back to her now, ma'am.
Okay, does that refresh your memory at all?
No, because I don't remember saying that.
Okay. Would you have any doubts that the police officer took your statement accurately at that point?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just told you I don't remember saying that.
No, my question was, would you have any reason to believe?
Well, I guess.
I guess I need to just ask my question.
Well, I would object to that, because how can she testify about what the officer's state of mind was, what the officer's accuracy? I happen to know the officer is very accurate, but I think to ask her that question is unfair.
Response?
I was also
Wait,
drunk on
ma'am.
that occasion.
No, ma'am. The legal response from the lawyer.
The question was, would she have any reason to believe that the officer would lie on her?
I don't think she'd know the answer to that question. It's also standing objection.
Would you have any reason to believe that the statement is not true?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Now, this incident happened in 2012, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And at that time, were your parents aware that this had happened?
I mean, I was their 14-year-old daughter, not really.
Okay.
They found out when I got pregnant.
And what did they do?
Objection, relevance.
Response?
I think it is relevant, Your Honor. Well, you know what? I'm going to withdraw that question.
Objection sustained.
At that point, did you prosecute?
They didn't ask me, they asked my parents.
And did your parents proceed with that?
An objection, relevance.
How loud? So your testimony is that your parents were asked about prosecution, you weren't.
Correct.
Okay.
And the subsequent question was, did they prosecute? And she said, no.
And
And there is a case regarding this child that's with friend of the court. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you initiate that case?
yes,
Okay. Do you recall when you initiated that case?
No,
Okay. Were you a minor when that case was initiated?
Yes.
Okay. Was that something your parents assisted you with?
no,
Okay. And how old is your daughter now?
she's 9.
Do you recall if you were drinking on the night that you went to see Mr. Curtis on Rio Road?
Yes, we were drinking.
Were you drinking prior to going there?
Yep.
And while you were there,
Yes.
were you doing any kind of drugs or anything, smoking, anything?
No, ma'am, I didn't smoke them.
And it's your testimony that no one else was in the house except for you and Gina and Mr. Curtis?
As far as I know, yeah, unless somebody was hiding in their bedroom.
How old were you when you had your child?
I had just turned 16.
Does your child spend any kind of time with Mr. Curtis?
No,
Okay. I have nothing further. Just making sure.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Ms. Patrick asked you about if you knew if there was anybody else in the house. Do you know, was there another bedroom? Was there,
I didn't go through the house.
okay,
So I have no idea.
so you don't know how many other bedrooms or rooms in the house there would have been?
No.
Okay, so if there was somebody there, you wouldn't have known.
No,
Is that correct?
correct.
All right. Ms. Patrick also asked you, Chelsea, about whether the defendant knew what your age was. Did you know what the defendant's age was?
No,
Okay. Would you have any problem with if the record would show he was 19?
I'm sorry.
Does the age 19 sound about right at the time that this happened for the defendant?
Objection, Your Honor, she's already addressed that she didn't know.
That's fine. I'll withdraw.
Objection sustained.
Ms. Patrick asked you about what the defendant said to you when you said that he told you to pull your pants down. Do you recall if he said anything else during the sex or before the sexual act?
I don't remember what we were talking about. Or I don't.
Do you remember anything that he said about how he wanted to have sex or what he wanted you to do?
Objection, Your Honor, I think she's already answered the question. She doesn't remember what they talked about.
I'll allow it to overruled. If you remember anything, you can testify.
He
If you
did
don't,
say-
if you don't, you can say you don't remember.
I don't remember what we talked about, but he did say that he wanted to hit it from the back.
He said what?
He wanted to hit it from the back.
Wanted to hit it from the back. What did you take that to mean, Chelsea?
Turn around, bend over.
And did you do that? So that is how the sex occurred.
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing else.
May this witness be excused.
She may.
Okay. Any objection from the defense?
No objection.
All right, this witness is excused, ma'am. You can step down.
Thank you.
Do the people have any other proofs?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Does the defense have any proofs today?
No, Your Honor.
Motion for bind over?
Yes, sir, Your Honor. The people would move that the defendant be bound over to stand trial on the charge. There are some enhancements in this case, Your Honor. But we are asking for bind over on the charge of criminal sexual conduct in the third degree as contained in the information that is engaging in sexual penetration, sexual intercourse with a child who was at least 13, but under 16 years.
Response to bind over?
Your Honor, I would leave, based upon the evidence that's presented in the preliminary examination and the burden of proof that is required, I will leave it to the court's discretion.
Thank you. This is a preliminary examination, which is a probable cause hearing, probable cause being the second lowest standard in criminal law. Suspicion being lower than that, beyond a reasonable doubt, the standard of conviction being the highest. So we look at it at a probable cause standard. I believe that hearing the testimony from Chelsea Gunther, spelled Gunter, would indicate that on or about April 24th, 2012, approximately to May 8th, 2012, on Rio Road in the city of Lansing, Ingham County, state of Michigan. So that'd be the date, the venue, and the location. And the defendant and the witness did indicate the defendant, James Curtis Marchand, in regards to identification. And now we're left with the offense of the offense. The defense, as the witness has indicated, that she was born in 1/11/97. And this is to happen in April 24th of 2012, which would make her 15 years of age. With a 15-year age of date, if she does not have the capacity to consent, though by law. With that understanding, the defendant, James Marchand Curtis, who was, for our purposes, 19 years old, there's a date of birth that would seem to March 24th, 1993, would seem to indicate that did have sexual penetration with a 15-year-old, so did have penis vagina sexual penetration pursuant to the witness's testimony. Chelsea Gunther, when she was 15, so between the ages of 13 and 15, which would mean that the defendant the people have met their burden of proof for probable cause at a preliminary examination standard. The defendant did engage in sexual penetration. There seems to be plenty of testimony about the penis vagina contact, including during redirect, the hitting it from the back statement, which would indicate that the person who was 15 years of age did not have the capacity to consent to the crime, which is a crime. It's a 15-year felony, and therefore the people have made their burden of proof by a probable cause standard. This court binds the defendant over on the case to circuit court to stand for trial based on the witness's testimony and the elements and probable cause that I've just stated. Anything else for the record from the
No,
Attorney General?
Your Honor.
Anything else from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right. With that understanding, that's all for the record in docket 22-02-481. No. Why do you ask?
I'm a little hoarse.
Yeah, a little bit. Not terrible. So that would be docket 22-02-481. Are the people ready to proceed on docket 22-02-459?
Yes, Your Honor, we are.
All right. So on that record, appearances for the record, once again.
Patricia Saressa for the people.
Melissa Patrick on behalf of Marchand Curtis, who is here to my right.
All right, thank you, ma'am. And sir, you are Marchand Curtis?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. This is time set for preliminary examination. Are there any preliminary matters to come to the court's attention before we get started?
I don't have any.
No, Your Honor.
Anything? All right. The people, the Attorney General and representing the people can call it for first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. It is Jennifer Nichols, and I'm going to step out and see.
All right.
Across street from the library.
Yep.
So he would, okay.
Well,
Ms. Nichols, you can come right up here. I'm gonna have you state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
Jennifer Nichols, and I'm sorry,
Last name only for the record. spell it.
Nichols.
All right, ma'am, I'm gonna have you raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under penalty of perjury.
I do.
All right, ma'am. I'm gonna have you sit here. You sound to be loud. You seem to me to be loud enough, but I'm gonna have you project for recording purposes, okay?
Okay,
Thank you. Counsel, you may proceed.
Ma'am, please tell us your full name for the record.
Jennifer Michelle Nichols,
And can you spell both the first and last?
JENNIFERNICHOLS,
You mentioned the middle name, I'm sorry.
Michelle,
How's that spelled?
MICHELLE.
Tell me how old you are. And if you would allow me to direct your attention to April 1st of 2019. Do you remember that day?
I remember the events of that day from, yes. from,
Well-
yes. Is downtown reporting for jury duty.
Had you actually been picked, or at what stage were you at in the jury service, in your jury service?
I was going through the selection process, but I hadn't been selected at
Okay.
that point.
By the way, what do you do for a living?
I'm a human resources manager.
Okay. And were you at or near Kalamazoo and Capitol?
Yes, I was that day.
And was that when you were on a break, or was that before it even began?
I recall that it was on a break, to my knowledge.
All right. And tell me where Capitol and Kalamazoo streets are. What city?
Lansing,
And what county?
being on my thinking,
And what state?
Michigan.
All right. What time were you in that vicinity?
I don't recall exactly the time, but I thought it was lunchtime.
Would it have been after lunch?
I don't recall.
Okay. If the report says around 1:57 PM, would you have a problem with that?
No, that was-
That sound about right?
I just remember it was the afternoon.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell me what happened at that location.
I was going down the street, and as I was going down the street, I heard someone say something to me, and I looked up and.
Let me stop you. I'm sorry. What did this person say to you?
It was something to the effect of, hey, beautiful, or something that got my attention, something like that.
All right. And was it what can you tell me about the voice?
I
Was it male, female?
Male.
All right. And were you on, what street were you on when that happened? Were you,
I thought it was on Kalamazoo
Okay.
going toward back to the court.
All right.
room.
so that would have been, I think, west, right? On Kalamazoo, towards the courthouse.
Yes,
All right.
yeah.
Tell me, after you heard that, hey, beautiful, or hey, what else did you think might have been said to the best of your ability to recall?
That's all I recall. It
All
was
right.
something to that effect.
What did you then see?
I witnessed a man pleasuring himself in his pants.
Okay. Tell me about that man.
Taller than me, thin African American in sweatpants, and that's what I recall.
Do you remember if the person had on a jacket or anything? Do you remember?
I don't know if it was a jacket or a hoodie,
Okay.
something like that.
And did you see that person's face?
At the time I did, but it's been a long time.
Do you think you would recognize that person if you were to see that person again?
I can't say for sure. No, I not with 100% certainty.
Do you see that person in the courtroom?
Objection, Your Honor. She's already stated that she wouldn't be able to identify that person with 100% accuracy, so.
So that's part of the record. So if she's able to, but my understanding is she's indicated it's not with 100% accuracy. So the objection's noted but overruled.
Do you understand what that means? If you see somebody, even though it isn't 100% certainty, somebody that resembles that individual, do you see somebody like that in the courtroom is my question.
Yes.
All right, can you indicate where, please, by pointing and telling me what that person's wearing right now?
He's wearing a blue shirt with white shirt.
All right. Your Honor, may the record reflect she gestured towards the defendant. She didn't point, she gestured and described the clothing that he's wearing. So I would submit that's identification for purposes.
That's identification in the courtroom as a person, but that was done with caveats.
Absolutely.
So so any objection, I think an objection's coming, so you can make a record.
I would like to object to the identification based upon her previous statement, but in addition to that, I'd like to voir dire 1 to 2 questions if the court would allow me to.
I think a voir dire on identification is certainly, I'm certainly amenable to that. All right. So I will indicate for the record that the witness has indicated that she believes the person's in the courtroom, but she can't say with 100% certainty. That's what I've heard so far. And then I'll allow brief questioning voir dire on the witness on identification only.
Gotcha. Ms. Nichols, if Mr. Curtis was not sitting here in this uniform, would you be able to positively identify him as the person that you saw that day on Kalamazoo?
No, not with 100% accuracy.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Tell me what this person was doing.
He had his hand down his pants and was pleasuring himself on the street.
All right, fair enough. Can you describe what you mean by pleasuring himself? I know this sounds like we're prying, but it's for purposes of the law. I need to ask you describe precisely what was happening.
He had his hands on his penis and he was rubbing it back and forth. with
All
his
right.
hand.
And this was right after he heard you, he called out to you and
Yes.
all right. What's a word that you would use to describe what he was doing?
Perverted, inappropriate, caused me to take action because I was angry, because I was concerned there might be other people around also witnessing something like that. So alarming.
What did you do or say when you saw and realized what he was doing? I'm assuming, did you realize what he was doing right away, or did it take, just tell me about that. Did you?
It took me a minute or a second to really look and realize, that what he was trying to get my attention for. I I yelled at him.
What did you say?
I said, are you serious right now? I was really angry. I was really angry. And I crossed the street because I didn't know what else to expect from someone on the street doing something like that. And I went over to a place I could make a call.
Who did you call? What did
I
you,
called 911.
and when you called 911, did you give a description of the individual?
Yes.
Do you recall what the description was?
Other than what I've already stated, I can't recall. I'm sure I said he was wearing sweatpants because I remember that. I'm sure I said he had some sort of sweatshirt or hoodie or something on and described him as African American, probably the height,
Okay.
and that he was thin.
Were you able to give the police a color of the clothing?
I'm sure at the time I did. I don't recall now what
Okay.
that was.
And this was right away. Well, within what?
Couple
Minutes, seconds? Okay.
Yeah.
I know, this sounds like I'm being morbid, but how long was he? I mean, I would describe that as masturbating. Would you describe that as masturbation?
Yes.
All right.
Objection, Your Honor, that's a leading question.
It is leading, I'll sustain. Although the witness has indicated, you can rephrase the question.
You've indicated that you saw him with his hand on his penis, moving it in a fashion that was what? How would you?
Objection, Your Honor, she never testified that she saw him moving
I
anything.
believe that's what she
Yeah, I
said.
did.
Tell me how it was moving. I'm sorry.
So the objection's overruled. I did believe she indicated that she indicated there was hand on penis movement. And so the objection's overruled. You may ask another question.
All right. Was it both hands or just one hand?
I thought it was just one hand
All right. And where was the hand?
down his pants on his penis, and it looked like he was masturbating.
How would you describe how he was masturbating? The way he was doing it, was it?
He was making sounds as if he was pleasuring himself, and which really upset me. And yeah, and so it was vigorously enough to make me not question what he was doing.
All right. And you're saying that he made sounds. What kind of sounds did he make?
Kind of little grunting sounds, it was under his breath, barely could hear it, but enough to make me start walking across the street quickly.
How close were you to him when you saw this, when this was happening?
I was probably a good block away from here to the end of the courtroom on a diagonal,
Okay.
enough to at that point look up and start making a move across the street.
So from where you are to the diagonal to the end of the courtroom,
Yeah, before I
30
Okay,
feet,
really.
40 feet?
yeah, 50 feet, something like that.
And what did he do when you called out to him and said, are you kidding me? Or I can't paraphrase your first new words exactly, but I understand the phrase very well.
Right.
What did you say?
I said, "Are you serious right now?"
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did he do when you said that? Did he stop masturbating?
I don't recall. I think at that point I just was trying to get out of his way, and I don't recall looking back other than when I called the police, and I don't recall if he was still doing that
Okay.
or not.
Was he on the same side of the street as you?
Initially he was.
Okay.
And then I moved across the street toward the courthouse.
How did this make you feel?
Angry. My first reaction was anger.
Can you tell me more about that? About how you felt?
It just brought up really bad feelings. Other situations in my life, everything that a woman doesn't want to have to remember. It was very I was concerned, we're across from areas where children are sometimes. So I was obviously extremely upset and felt I should call someone right away. Because it concerns me that someone could be that open about something like that in a public space.
All right. Were you upset?
Yes.
Do you recall saying you were disgusted?
I don't recall saying that, but that is not a feeling that I would say is far-fetched. No, I was really upset and yeah, absolutely offended.
What did you do after you called 911?
I'm sure I called my then boyfriend. I had to go into court. I remember I couldn't talk for very long, but I remember being very upset and calling him and talking with him about it.
And when you called 911, in addition to the description that you gave, did you also tell them what you saw? The police or the dispatcher?
I am sure I would have,
Okay.
absolutely. Otherwise, why would I call? Describe someone,
All right. I realize we're asking you to go back to 2019.
right?
You did not wait for the police?
No.
Can you
because I
tell
had
us
to-
why?
Yeah, I had to be back in court. So
That
I
had to be a
didn't-
tough spot, right?
Yeah, I didn't think the judge would.
Objection, Your Honor, I don't,
I'll withdraw. What were you thinking of in terms of what you were doing and whether or not you should stay?
I was thinking that, gosh, I wish I could have stayed so that I could have at least, met with the police, because typically when you call 911, someone comes out to meet you and asks for your statement. And I was going to miss being able to do all of that and find out whether or not they were going to be able to find him. But under the circumstances, I didn't want to explain that to a judge as to why I would be late back into the courtroom.
Tell me more about that feeling of not wanting to explain to the judge.
Well, I just didn't know that the judge would understand or would hold me accountable for being late back to his court. So I felt I could just call 911 and report it, and whatever happened, happened. So
And the police did reach out.
they did call and leave a message, but they didn't explain what happened or why. It was, to my recollection, very vague. So I didn't realize the importance of their call. So I didn't recall calling them back, or maybe I tried and we played phone tag and it just became, it was, if I figured if it was important enough, the police would have come to would have come knocking on my door.
Thank
They
you,
did
ma'am.
not.
Give me just 1 second to review something. All I have. Pass the witness.
Cross-examination?
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I do have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Been a long week. I'm going to show you People's Proposed Exhibit 1. And what I'm getting at here is, I want to know if you can tell me where you were when this incident happened. So I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 1. Don't say anything, just look at it and tell me if you can identify it, and take your time. You don't have to, I know that you haven't seen these. But
Yes.
all right. How do you recognize what that depicts?
That is the view going toward the courthouse from Capitol up to Kalamazoo. That's Kalamazoo Street.
Okay, great. And I'm going to ask you the same question. We're going to come back to this. I'm going to do this one after the other. I'm going to ask you the same question with respect to People's Proposed Exhibit 2. Can you look at that? Don't say anything. And then once you've had a chance to look at it, ask a couple questions. Can you identify that, or is that not clear?
I don't know that perspective is clear, although that is that's the bridge that goes over to LCC's to the right down there, past this building on the right, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be looking at Kalamazoo from the other side of this, or this would be Kalamazoo on the other side of the street, I believe. In fact, LCC is back behind this building.
All right. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to ask you about people's proposed exhibit 1. And council's seen it before the hearing, Your Honor, but I give her a chance to review it again.
Record may so reflect, council's reviewing the exhibit.
And I would move for the admission.
I want to object to this. We don't have a foundation for this picture. Who took the picture, when it was taken? Did the witness take the picture?
No,
So I'm going to sustain the objection. I just want to know when the picture was taken and if it's a fair and accurate representation of,
is this a fair and accurate representation of that area to you, for you, when this incident happened?
Yes.
All right. She did not take the picture, Your Honor. Detective Harrison took the picture, and it was in 2022.
right? So revisit your objection. We do have, the witness has indicated that's fair and accurate representation of the scene, that she's recognized, that the streets didn't move, things of that nature. It was taken after the event, so I'll hear any objection or response.
Well, just one thing, for the record, that was not a part of my discovery package.
Okay,
Other than that, I have no further
all
objection.
right. Motion to admit People's Exhibit 1, with the witness indicating that the exhibit is a fair and accurate representation of of the area that she saw on her day in question, which her day, as testified, is April 1st. I'm going to allow the exhibit as demonstrative evidence towards the area on April 1st, 2019.
Thank you, Your
So
Honor.
the exhibit's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Jennifer, does this picture, are you able to show us where you were and where the defendant or the person that you referred to as doing these things was during this incident? Or is it
Yes,
off?
yes. No, I was coming around this corner and I was heading toward up the street on the right hand side of the street here, I was across from the trees. And I was coming up toward these cars that are depicted here.
Anna, can we be a little bit more specific? She's saying this and that, and I'm not exactly sure where she's talking about.
Can you hold it up so everybody can see maybe?
All
Is that
right.
agreeable, Your Honor?
Yeah, and you can make a record as she's discussing what
Sure.
she sees.
So I was coming around the corner here and I was
For
walking
the
on
record, you're indicating it.
sorry, at the corner of Capitol and Kalamazoo where the sign is.
Right, and so the
Right.
library is where in that?
The library is to the left
All
over
right.
there, I believe.
All right.
Right by the trees. So I was on the sidewalk on the right-hand side of the street.
So you were right near the intersection itself
Yeah, yes, I was
Okay.
coming up on the intersection when
of Capitol and Kalamazoo.
Capitol and Kalamazoo when I heard him call my name, and I think we were closer to where, I was headed toward where the cars are parked on this particular, maybe a block up. I believe I started walking across the street.
All right, so let me
Sort
stop
of.
you for a minute. So you were close to, I believe that's Townsend, is it not? The street, you were almost a block down from Capitol and Kalamazoo when you,
That's what I recall.
so he would have been where?
He would have been on the right-hand side of the street by Townsend and Kalamazoo, is that right? So, and I recall going across the street toward the trees and toward the building on the left, and that's all I recall.
Okay, the building on the left is the courthouse?
Yes, the courthouse. That's toward the courthouse.
All right, so you were one block away from Capitol and Kalamazoo, within that area.
So again, I'd like to renew,
Objection is to leading.
Yes, not just that, but this picture actually does not reflect what the witness is testifying to.
But I'm not too concerned of which way was eventually, but I am concerned about the leading nature of these questions. So I'm going to sustain the objection.
Tell me exactly where you were, if you can just point to the photograph and show us to the best of your ability,
Where she was when?
when you saw the person masturbating.
I was coming across this street. I don't know if this is Capitol
Right.
and Kalamazoo.
So you were in the-
I was coming up that, I was around this vicinity when he called at me or got my attention. And he was standing north or toward the courthouse.
All right.
On Kalamazoo, a little
Okay.
bit farther down on Kalamazoo. So I had rounded the corner and I was crossing the intersection when I, and was in the sidewalk. And so he was down toward the cars down here.
All
And
right.
I was like 50 feet away and I heard him and looked up. I was on the sidewalk at that point.
Okay,
And then I started walking diagonally after I yelled at him.
so when you initially saw him, you were near the crossway or in the crossway.
Yeah, because I was heading up the street, so I saw a man, but I didn't realize, I wasn't paying attention to him until he caught me by, saying something to me, and I looked up to see what he was doing.
All right. And you were saying that he was about 50 feet away from you, near the cars that are shown in this photograph.
Correct.
Your Honor, it's been admitted, so I will.
I see it one more time, please, because I didn't see it.
Thank you. And counsel, during cross, if you needed to cross-examine, it's available.
And when you called 911, you did that on your cell phone, you had a cell phone with you? All right, that's all I have.
Cross-examination.
Just for clarification, you don't remember the time that this actually happened, correct?
Not the exact time, just it was in the afternoon around lunch.
Okay. Around lunchtime. Do you recall if there were, well, let me withdraw that. What was around you as you were approaching the man that you saw? What buildings, what landmarks were around you that you can recall?
Well, the buildings that were on Kalamazoo, I was headed in the direction of the, where the front of the court building is.
Okay.
Specifically, that's where I was headed towards. So I recall just the office buildings or whatever they are on my right-hand side, and then the park or whatever libraries on the left, and I was
Okay.
headed toward the courthouse.
So being lunchtime, it was fairly busy with people around that area, correct?
It wasn't, I don't recall a ton of cars. I don't recall a ton of people. I don't recall that.
Do you recall any people?
Not until I think I got to the building, because I was so focused on making the call, and that's all I remember.
Okay. So based upon that testimony, you were walking on the sidewalk alone?
Yes, I don't recall a lot of people around me.
Okay.
I was not with anyone that day.
Okay. So you were on jury duty and, well, you were called in for jury duty. Do you recall how many people you were present with for jury duty?
30 or 40, maybe.
Okay. and you were released for lunch. Do you recall if any of those people walked downtown as well?
No, I don't recall. People left the building.
Okay. And it's your testimony that you were 50 feet, approximately 50 feet away from the man that you saw
Correct.
when you first saw him.
That's about right.
Okay.
Yes.
And you continued to walk towards him, correct?
I was walking toward, when I turned the corner, from whatever that main street is onto Kalamazoo. I noticed him, but I didn't notice what he was doing. And
Okay.
because had my head down until he said something to me, and I turned my head up, and at that point, it already was about 50 feet from him.
Okay.
And then I yelled at him and walked across the street.
Okay. May I see that exhibit? Your Honor?
You may.
Okay. And in reference to the People's Exhibit number 1, you stated that you were turning a corner. Can you tell me approximately where was the corner at that you were turning on?
I need to leave to her.
Well,
She could.
yeah.
She can identify first and then we'll
Yeah,
make the record.
yeah.
I wish I could tell you the street I was on, but
But
I
is
I
it
don't
on
remember.
here anywhere?
Yeah, I would have been, well, if this is the corner, or if this is the corner, I can't recall. It was a main street. This is a one-way.
So this
This is not the street I was coming from, because this is a one-way. I was coming from a two-way street behind this street. So I was coming from the corner of,
So just for clarification, this is Kalamazoo
right,
and this is Capitol. You weren't coming around this corner or this corner,
I was coming
but you were
from,
further down the street.
I was coming from the main street where the old Greyhound building was. I can't think of it. It was behind me, where all the restaurants are.
To the Washington.
Yes,
Oh, Washington Square. So you were walking, you had come around the corner and you would walk a full block to get to this corner.
Correct.
Okay, and then you crossed over.
Right.
And is that when you saw him, when you crossed over?
I would have seen a man standing there, but not paid it, didn't really pay much attention. And then I had my head down and I was walking toward him still through the crosswalk, and I was about just past Capitol on Kalamazoo when I heard him say something to me. And that's when I looked up, noticed what he was doing, and yelled at him. And
From
left.
here?
From around this area, yes.
Okay, so
I
let the
recall.
record reflect, she's saying that just as she crossed the street is when she saw the man. Was he at the next block?
I don't recall if he was at the next block or not.
Okay.
He was just on the sidewalk further up toward the courthouse, but not so far up that he was in front of the courthouse. It's not that far.
And just for clarification, did you see his hand in his pants from that far back?
Yes,
Okay. Did you see his hand moving from that far back?
yes,
Okay. Just for clarification, you did not see his naked penis, correct?
correct.
You didn't see his actual hand on his penis, correct?
Correct.
You assumed that was happening based upon just seeing his hand in his pants, correct?
I assumed that was happening because of the way he was moving his hand in his pants vigorously while
Okay.
I was walking past.
Okay. So can you tell me about how long was it before you first saw him and when you crossed the street?
Well, I yelled as I was crossing the street at him, so it wasn't very long. By the time, I looked up and I noticed he was doing that in his pants. So I don't know, 15 seconds, 30, I can't tell you for sure.
Okay,
But I didn't stick around and walk toward him. I walked across the street at that point.
so you crossed over the crosswalk, you got on Kalamazoo, you saw, he called you, said something to you. You saw what he was doing and you crossed the street.
Correct.
So you would have crossed the street in front of the park, right?
Right around the corner of that area, correct? Like I would have been probably right around that corner of between the building and the trees,
Okay.
if I recall correctly.
Can you estimate how close did you get to him?
This been asked and answered in just had 50 feet.
All out, overruled.
Yeah, I don't think I got more than 50 feet from him.
Okay. Where did you go to call the police?
I don't recall where I called from. I just know I was headed toward the courthouse and must have called between while I was walking toward the courthouse. That's all I can think, but I don't recall
Okay.
where I was standing.
Do you recall if you could still see the man when you called the police?
No, I don't recall.
Okay. So you crossed the street somewhere between the court building and the park, or in the block where the park is?
No, I don't recall being that. I recall being closer to the corner of where the courthouse was than in the middle of trees. I was, farther up.
Okay.
But I wasn't quite at the courthouse building yet.
Okay, so somewhere in the block where the park is. Did you report that to any of the court officers who guide and help the jurors to find where they're going? Did you report that to a court officer?
I don't know that I said that specifically, but I'm sure I would have given the location of where I was at the time.
No, not the police, but the court officer that when you are a juror, there's a person that helps you to find where you're going. Did you report it to that person?
No, I didn't report it.
Okay. And you said that you received a message from the police department subsequent to this. Did you ever follow up yourself with any police officers or detectives or anyone?
I don't recall calling back, or if I did, I didn't ever hear back.
Okay.
I just received a message that was very vague and did not lead me to take any action.
Okay.
Because it was, in my mind, going to be any solution to the issue at the time. So,
Okay. And you did state that you were alarmed and disturbed and all of those, yet you didn't report it to a court officer and you didn't follow up with the police. Is that correct?
I did not report it to a court officer. I felt that calling 911 was my way of immediately calling someone to make sure that someone did something about it, because
Right.
I was very upset.
And then you left, correct?
And then I believe on the phone, I explained to the 911 operator that I couldn't stay.
Right.
So
you left and then
Yes.
you didn't report it to anyone at the court
right.
and you
It's been
didn't
asked and
follow up
answered,
with
Your Honor.
police officers.
I would object. It's been asked and answered.
I'll sustain it as asked and answered.
I have nothing further. Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No.
May this witness be excused?
She may.
All right, without objection, the
No
witness is excused. Ma'am, you may leave the witness chair. Thank you. Do the people have any further witnesses?
You do, Your Honor. Officer Tenbrink?
Officer, you can come right up here. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Tyler Tenbrink, TYLER TENBRINK.
All right, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
All right, thank you, sir. Have a seat right there and please protect.
Good afternoon, officer.
Afternoon.
I believe you just spelled your name, but would you please do it again for the record?
First name TYLER, last name TENBRINK.
Thank you, and tell me how you are employed.
Lansing Police Department,
How long have you been so employed, sir?
approximately 4 years.
And what do your duties there include?
I'm currently assigned to the Violent Crime Initiative unit right now.
All right. Have you always been an officer with Lansing?
Yes, no, sorry.
Did you work in another department before
Yes.
that? All right. Where did you work before that, sir?
I've worked at the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office, the Grant Police Department, and Muskegon Heights Police Department.
Thank you. How long have you been a police officer in total?
Close to 11 years.
All right. And I'd like to direct your attention to April 1st of 2019. Were you employed in the capacity to which you just testified last as a Lansing police officer
Yes,
on that day? And were you working?
yes.
And what was your shift that day? Do you recall? What were your hours that day?
I was on a day shift, so that is 6:30 a.m. to 4:30 or 4:30 p.m. I believe.
All right. And do you recall being dispatched to the area, I believe, Capitol and Kalamazoo?
Yes,
And for the record, that area, Capitol Street and Kalamazoo Street, is in what city,
Lansing,
state and county?
State of Michigan, County of Ingham.
All right. And do you recall why you were dispatched to that location?
I was dispatched to that location at 401 South Capitol on a obscenity complaint.
And do you recall what time you responded to that location?
I was dispatched at 13:58 hours, so 1:58 p.m.
1:58 p.m. Do you know when the call came in to dispatch from the 911, from the complaint?
I don't have the exact time, but I believe it's just previous to that,
Like previous, when you say like what, how long?
a minute or two, I believe.
All right, so just minutes before.
As far as I know, yes.
And where were you at when you got the call to respond to that location?
I don't recall the exact location, but I was close to that area.
All right, and were you in a vehicle, police vehicle and in uniform?
Yes.
Tell me what you did.
As I responded to the call, I was heading west on Kalamazoo towards that area.
And what did you see, if anything?
As I was heading west in my patrol vehicle, as I passed Grand, I observed a black male with a description given initially of a black male, gray hooded sweatshirt, green jacket and red pants was the description given. As I crossed Grand heading west on Kalamazoo, I observed a male wearing the exact clothing description, running or jogging westbound on Kalamazoo near Washington.
All right. And this person matched the description.
Yes.
What'd you say again? Gray hoodie, or what was the color of the hoodie?
Gray hoodie, green jacket, and red pants.
So red pants would kind of stand out, right?
Yes,
All right. And an African-American male, you said?
yes,
So it matched the description.
yes,
This suspect running matched the description.
correct.
What did you do upon making that observation, sir?
I continued to follow the male. He was running on the south side of Kalamazoo. As I approached Washington, I initiated my emergency lights. And then as I passed Washington, I flicked my emergency siren a few times to try to get the male's attention. The male then turned behind a building just west of Washington and went southbound through a parking lot.
Do you know where that parking lot would be in relationship to the library that's on the corner of Capitol there in Kalamazoo?
It's in the same block in a
Okay.
sense, between Washington and Capitol.
Okay,
So it would just be, just east a little bit of, 401 South Capitol.
all right. And this person you said ran where?
Southbound through the department.
Okay, which parking lot?
The parking lot that's south of.
Objection, I
Kalamazoo.
believe he just actually answered that question, Your Honor. It's been asked and answered. He described the parking lot next to the library.
I didn't catch it, so I'll overrule the objection. You can rephrase the question. I wasn't sure which parking lot he was being specific on.
And that's what I was asking. Was it the parking lot next to the library as council just
It'd be just east of the parking.
Just
or
east
just
of
east
the library parking lot, all right. And did you see where the person went as the person matching the description ran in that parking lot just east of the library?
Briefly, continue south, and then I lost sight of that.
All right, and why did you not continue to follow him through the parking lot in your vehicle?
I was unable to get into that parking lot.
Why is that, sir?
Gated.
Okay, so what did you do?
I stopped my patrol vehicle right there in Kalamazoo, just west of Washington, and got out on foot.
And what did you do next?
I attempted to, I yelled for the male to stop. He continued to go southbound. I attempted to try and locate him on foot, but initially was unable to.
All right, were there other officers that were also responding to the scene?
Yes,
What other officers were responding to the best of your knowledge, officer?
Officer Van Beek and Officer Crenshaw.
All right. And then what happened next?
As Officer Van Beek and Officer Crenshaw and myself, we searched the area. And then the male was located by Officer Van Beek underneath the vehicle.
Tell me about that. How did you become aware that the male had been located by Officer Van Beek?
I don't exactly recall if that went over the radio or we're just in
Okay.
the area and I was yelled that he was under this vehicle.
And where was this vehicle? Did you arrive to the location where Van Beek had found this person?
Yes.
Okay, where was this vehicle?
So the vehicle would be between Capitol and Washington, in that parking lot.
Okay.
And I think it's just north of Lenawee. So between Lenawee and Kalamazoo and Capitol and Washington.
And you say near a vehicle, what, can you be more descriptive?
It was a black truck.
And what, did you see where this person was in relation to this vehicle?
The male was underneath the vehicle.
All right. So was he visible upon approach to this truck, black truck?
I did not initially observe him. As far as I can recall, once I arrived there, he was coming out from underneath the truck.
Okay. So was it Officer Van Beek that was telling him to get from out of the truck,
Correct.
underneath the truck?
Correct.
All right. Did the person that came out from underneath the truck, did you see that?
Yes.
And did the person still match the description that had been given to you about the hoodie and the red pants, and green jacket and the red pants and black male? Did that description still match the person that came out from under the truck?
Yes,
And did you in fact have contact with that person?
I did.
Tell us about that contact, sir.
That male was detained at that point and identified.
All right. And do you recognize, let me ask it this way, sorry, I'm trying to jump ahead. If you saw that person again that came out from under the truck that matched the description, would you recognize the person?
Yeah.
You see that person in the courtroom this afternoon, sir?
I do.
Can you please indicate where by pointing and telling me what that person is wearing right now as you testify?
He is seated over at this table, wearing a blue jumpsuit and a white undershirt.
All right. Your Honor, may the record reflect that as the witness answered your question, he has identified the
Any
defendant.
objection for purposes of preliminary examination?
No objection, Your Honor.
Without objection, the witness has identified the defendant.
Thank you. So that you arrested the defendant?
Yes, on a warrant.
There was a warrant outstanding?
Correct.
And you knew that, had you seen the defendant before? Had you had prior contact with him?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, but you had a warrant for him.
There was a warrant upon a search, a lean search of his name.
Okay.
Came back as
What name was it?
Marshawn Curtis.
All right, thank you. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Tenbrink?
Yes.
Tenbrink. Officer Tenbrink, do you recall if it was busy when you first encountered the man that you saw?
I don't recall exactly. It was roughly about 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm. And is this an area that you regularly patrol?
At that time, yes.
Okay. Just for clarification, at that time, were you a first responder? Like, was a part of your job patrolling and responding at that time?
Yes, I was a patrol officer at that time.
Okay. And as a patrol officer, is that area typically a very busy area around the library and Washington Street
Yes, it can be.
during 2 o'clock hours, lunch hours?
Yes.
Okay. And what about the park? Is that typically a busy area as well during the daytime?
Which part is that?
That there's a park next to the public, well, across the street from the public library there on the corner of Kalamazoo and Capitol.
Yes,
That's a busy park?
can be, yes.
Okay. And you stated specifically that you did not find the man under the truck, correct?
Not initially, no.
Okay. And when you say, well, you testified that you saw him coming from under the truck. Is that correct?
I believe so, that's what my recollection.
Okay. So you arrested the defendant based upon an outstanding warrant that was found in lien, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you do any subsequent follow-up on the actual charge itself?
I did not.
Okay. Did you ever have an opportunity to talk to the complaining witness, Ms. Nichols?
I did not.
Okay. Now, did you see the defendant at the CATA station at all that day?
I could not answer that as far as the day, during the day.
That, well, not the whole day, let me be more specific. During the time when you say he was running or jogging, did he get to the CATA station, or was he ever around the CATA station during this time?
Yes, so as I was going west on Kalamazoo, just passing Grand, that's when I observed him on the south side of the, or south side of the road, running westbound. And that is right near gas station. So the gas station is at Grand Kalamazoo area.
Okay. So I want to get clarification. You initially stated that he ran through the parking lot that's next to the library. And you found, well, he was found under a truck. And now it's your testimony that you saw him further down near the CATA station.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to that as it's asked, because as to content, it's confusing. He said, she's trying to put two events together. He talked about seeing him initially and then chasing him.
I think I think you can ask him to testify. You can ask him if he previously indicated a statement, or if you want to clarify any ambiguity. But your statement's your question's getting a little longer than his answer.
Yeah, I
Well,
understand.
it's not what he said.
So I'm going to sustain the objection.
Okay, so just for clarification, your initial testimony was that you initially saw the defendant run through the parking lot behind the library or next to the library, correct?
I have to object as to, the officer described that he saw the defendant during a series of events. When she says your initial testimony, it's confusing because he described when he initially saw the defendant and then what he did following. So to phrase it that way, I think it's confusing. It assumes facts, not an evidence, and it's a mischaracterization.
I don't agree with her. I'm asking about testimony that he testified to.
Your understanding of the testimony.
Yes.
Okay. If you can answer the question, if you can answer the question, answer the question. If you can't, don't answer the question. If you don't understand the question as it's asked, don't answer the question or say you don't understand the question. I'll give you the opportunity to re-ask the question.
Okay. When did you initially see the defendant?
As far as when I first saw the defendant,
After you were called to the complaint?
as I previously stated, I
Mhm.
was heading west on Kalamazoo
Yes.
in my patrol vehicle. As I passed Grand, I observed a black male wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, green jacket, and red pants running on the south side of Kalamazoo, heading west near Washington. As I followed the male, I activated my emergency lights near Washington. The male continued west and then ran behind a building southbound, just past Washington and before our Capitol.
Okay, so you initially saw him near the Grand area.
Yes.
Okay, that clarifies what I'm asking. So once Mr. Curtis was arrested, you were pretty much done with the case completely, correct?
Correct.
Okay, nothing further.
Any cross-examination
No, sir.
or redirect, I should say. Can this witness be excused?
Yes, he may.
All right, this witness is excused. Thank you for your appearance
Thank
today.
you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we would rest at this time.
Okay, so the people rest. Does the defense have any proofs today?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, motion for bind over?
Yes, Your Honor, we would move that the defendant be bound over to stand trial on the charge in this complaint and warrant, that being a charge of gross indecency. Your Honor, I did provide to the court and to counsel a case, and I believe is on point, People versus Drake. It happens to be out of Ingham County, interestingly enough, which basically says that masturbation is gross indecency, just in case there's just in anticipation of any argument as to that.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to read the case response.
I don't recall receiving a case at all, but I'm happy to look at it at a later time. Your Honor, first of all, we have issues with identity. The witness stated she was 50 feet away from him, but yet she claims that she could hear him grunting, and she knew that his hands were in his pants and he was doing something, but she can't definitively say that his hand was on his penis. I mean, she testified to it, but how she would know that when his hands are in his pants, I don't know that, Your Honor. She's presuming that he was masturbating, Your Honor, but I don't think that has been proven here today. So I would just ask the court to dismiss the case.
Any response?
Your Honor, I think it was rather clear that she saw him masturbating. She was also very, in my opinion, forthright. She didn't embellish. She said that she wasn't sure if it was both hands, but it was at least one hand down his pants. She described it as a movement. She described it as vigorous. And she also indicated that right before or simultaneously, he had been calling out to her, making, I don't know, sexual comments about, or at least flirtatious comments. And then that he was making noises. That intersection is busy sometimes, and sometimes it's not. So I think the credibility of the witnesses was evident from her testimony, and I don't think there's any ambiguity about what she described and what it was.
Thank you. Of course, the standard preliminary examination is probable cause. The location is Kalamazoo and Capitol Avenue. I don't think there's any conflict that it was not testified to in the city of Lansing, Ingham County, state of Michigan, which takes care of location and venue. The date is April 1st, 2019, at the city location. So the only really two variables here are identification. The witnesses, Ms. Nichols' testimony by itself is less than 100% in regards to identification. Also, it was done over objection under the circumstances that the defendant is here in a certain outfit, looking a certain way. I understand that she said it was less than 100%. However, minutes later with the second witness, there seems to be a tie-in to the clothing, which is the pants, the hoodie or gray sweatshirt, and the follow-up, which testimony would indicate is minutes after. Matching the description of the defendant's found under a car, what would seem to be located underneath the truck, evading arrest on some level. Okay, that's the testimony of the law enforcement officer. So I do find at a preliminary examination probable cause standard that identification has been made. So that's location, venue, identification, date. So let's go to the offense. And the offense is that the defendant engaged in a sexual act that involved one or more of the following. And actually, the jury instructions has brought into the case that was cited. So there's no really, the jury instructions are the jury instructions. It indicates that the defendant, in regards to the testimony at a probable cause level, was in the act of masturbating himself in a public place. Place is public when a member of the public who's in a place the public is generally invited to or allowed to be, which which would indicate Kalamazoo Street that is indicated here on Capitol, that the act of masturbation was done in front of the witness who testified today, Jennifer Nichols. So I would find that location, offense, venue, ID, and date were met that identified as Marshawn Curtis did being a male commit or was party to the commission of the act of gross indecency, which was viewed by Jennifer Nichols, who is a member of the opposite sex. I believe that's been met as a preponderance of the evidence, a probable cause level, which is the purpose of this preliminary examination. And we're set for probable cause that people have proved location, offense, venue, ID, and date, and therefore this case is bound over to circuit court, where the defendant will be standing trial at a reasonable doubt standard. Anything else for the record in docket 22-02459 from the people?
No, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
There was a statement on the record that a case had been sent to me, and just for the record, that was never sent to me. But other than that, I have nothing.
All right, thank you. And I did, any quotations I made were from jury instructions 20.31, which are the gross indecency jury instructions. With that understanding, that's all for the record in 22-02459. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.